says one thing, there's a huge response. He backs off from it, there's another response. I don't want to try and guess what's going to happen next. I think you make smart buys based on today, and you don't hold that car for any longer than you need to. And that kind of parlays into my whole obsession of how I would operate a dealership and how I used to operate a dealership.
Today, I'm thrilled to be sitting down with Joe Neiman, president of DealerClub, for our second conversation. Since his last appearance on the podcast, the two-times auction founder pulled off a $25 million exit to CarMax, and he's not slowing down. Now he's flipping the script on wholesale and even paying dealers when they sell a car. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Dealer DMV, Q Merit, and CarMax. And now let's get into the show. Joe Neiman back on the CDG podcast. Joe, welcome back.
Thanks, Yossi. It feels great to be here. Time's gone by pretty quick, I guess, right?
It is. You were on over a year ago. It was like 14 months. You were pre-company, pre-exit, I should say. I would say you're the fastest entrepreneur in automotive tech to exit ever, probably.
This one, I think, surprised everyone, me included.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievable story here. So people, for those that have not heard about CarMax's acquisition of DealerClub, the company you very recently launched, we'll talk a lot about it. It's pretty incredible what you're doing. I remember, so last time you came on, right, February 2024, you were pretty cagey, right? You didn't exactly say what you're working on. You said, I have this idea. You've been in wholesale like your whole life.
Pretty much.
And I think it's important. You've uncovered here some really interesting insights. You have a lot of just data. And I mean, frankly, your fingers are on the pulse of the wholesale market, the used vehicle wholesale market. But I want to talk a lot about your progress, what you've done, where are we heading in wholesale? What has changed for you since then? Not just financially, but also from actual what you've learned about the business. So let's just start, let's kind of pick up on February 2024. Okay. We discussed the future of car wholesaling at the time. We discussed artificial intelligence versus actual intelligence, as you said, right? What has happened over the last 12 months? Give us a little rundown of your life and what you've been up to.
Yeah, sure. So launched a company called DealerClub, which is kind of an evolution of where I see wholesale going in the future. And working on it kind of in the background for a minute, and got a great team of people that help bring this thing to life. And we launched it.
Okay, wait. I have to stop you right there. So I think for those that don't have that context,
yeah,
you are a co-founder of ACV Auctions. So this is a big deal. When someone who co-founded a multi-billion-dollar auction app or company goes on to found a new auction company, you listen. So I know you're being humble, but I think that's important context.
I had a little unfinished business, I guess. It's just literally, you say I have data, I have intuition, and I think I've got, instead of finger on the pulse with like what's going on in the wholesale landscape, I focus my attention and energy on the psyche of the customer. And that's what I think I've got a better understanding than anybody else on. And that's hopefully doesn't come across as an egotistical comment. I don't mean that. If I sat here and said, I can predict the future of wholesale and I can predict the trends because I've got all the data, I'm not saying that. That's generally what everybody else tries to say. I don't. My strategy is to empower the dealers. I think they know more than me. They're the ones buying and selling all these cars. I'm not a car dealer anymore. I'm not really in the game, but I think I've got a really keen understanding because I was a dealer for a lot of years, and I was a proactive dealer who did online retail and then online wholesale really before anybody else, or at least was at the early end of the curve there. So yeah, I was a co-founder of ACV because I really thought I saw an opportunity there, and I think I was right. And I think there's more to be done in the wholesale landscape, and that's what we're looking to do with DealerClub.
Talk to us about that. You were ACV Auctions, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. What
did you see? What was the insight that you had gained there that you said, I need to fix this, or like you said, I have unfinished business? What was that specific insight?
Yeah, I think it's really that you've got a huge responsibility as the curator of a marketplace to empower both sides, but also ensure that you're not creating any disproportionate balances, right? A marketplace is kind of it's like a seesaw, and it can tip in favor of one side or the other, and then you can get some unintentional outcomes that you're not looking to create. And just, I'm hyper aware that the dealers really matter in this experience. And I think where wholesale has evolved to kind of unintentionally is this hands-off, we'll be a full service provider. We'll do everything for you. You don't have to worry about anything. And I just don't think that's reality. I think that dealers need to own wholesale, just like they own their retail process. We might have said this on the last podcast, but if any of these big providers came into, let's say, Yossi, you've got a Chevy dealership and said, hey, just get rid of your wholesales team, on the floor, right? The people in the BDC, we can do it all better. We'll just bring in our third party people. You would say, no, I've trained these people. We have a process. We like these people. It's our culture. And yet in wholesale, that's what everybody's done. They've said, ew, wholesale cars, dirty, I don't know anything about them, it's a trade-in, I think it's got problems, it's off-brand. They have every reason and excuse to just say, make this problem go away, make this pile of cars that I don't feel comfortable with go away. But they're just cars. There's nothing there to fear. And I think that the wholesale providers, the auctions, the online platforms have kind of catered to this, and if anything, like almost empowered this methodology of like, oh, don't worry, we'll just come by, we'll take all these problems off your hands and make them go away. But wholesale's not a problem. Wholesale, I truly believe this. Wholesale is the biggest, that's why I keep coming back to it. It is the biggest opportunity in every single dealership. There's so many dealerships that just turn a blind eye to 10s, 20s, hundreds of cars, thousands of cars a year that are going through their ecosystem, going through their books, and they're just like, oh, I don't like it because it's not my core product, and I'm chasing a plus or minus $100 or a break even, end of the month strategy. And if that's your strategy, like you're living under a rock. That's like if you don't see wholesale as an opportunity, that's like saying I don't think you can sell cars on the internet, 10, 15 years ago. It's just antiquated.
Joe, where do you fall into that spectrum, right? So you think that wholesale for many used to be, let's just dump the cars. I don't want to call it a cost center, but it's just like, let's just get rid of them, quick liquidation. You're saying it's an opportunity to make money, right?
Absolutely.
To grow a business. You are working on, and I'll let you kind of define this better, but essentially reputational based wholesale.
Yes.
Which is, I want to say you're the first to do this via technology. I mean, it's obviously been done manually 30 years ago or 20 years ago, but to do it, using technology, I think you're the first. Can you explain that, exactly what that means and what you're doing here?
Yeah, it is DealerClub is a reputation-based wholesale platform. So it kind of looks and feels like your typical online auction, but instead of critical information about who that seller is that you need to know to make informed decision being like behind the curtain, it's front and center. And so this isn't for every dealer. I mean, I think it is, but there's dealers that are going to say, no, I want to hide behind the curtain. And if that's the game you play, that's fine. There's other platforms for you. This is a platform for folks that understand that if you have a positive reputation, you will run a more profitable operation. Like there is money to unlock. Like Yossi, I am a firm believer. I know everybody's trying to commoditize the VIN and all this talk about the universal price for a car. I don't believe in that. I believe there's a general range of what a car is worth, and then there's plus or minus based upon who's bringing that car to market, who's repping that car, who's standing behind that car, or who's hiding from it. And the simplest example I'll give you is, let's say you want a new 60-inch flat screen TV. You could either go to Best Buy and pay $600 for it, or you could buy one in a back alley that fell off a truck from a guy for $250. It's the same exact television, but it's worth two different amounts in two different settings based on who is bringing that product to market. And that's exactly what we have going on in wholesale, and that's exactly what we're trying to bring to the front and center, because that's what everybody that's been in wholesale, I used to walk the lanes, right? I never bought cars online. I know I started ACV auctions. I never bought cars online.
Go figure.
Well, because there was context in the auction lanes that informed my decisions. And so what I was trying to do with ACV was bring a lot of that context and, I don't know if you want to call it safety, but additional information that I needed as a buyer to feel comfortable and informed to make a decision. And now with what we're doing with DealerClub is we're just taking that to another level. We're saying, look, you don't have to go to an auction, get roughed up for the first couple of months to figure out who you can buy and, transact with. We're just going to tell you front and center, right? Like you're going to see based on other people's ratings if they're a quality seller to do business with. And we're going to break out the stats. Are they good with producing title? Are they good with describing the cars? What's their sell-through rate? Buyers don't want to stand in the lanes of sellers who have 10 or 20% abysmal sell-through rate. And what's really fascinating is
it's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time, right? And they'll pay more for the car if it's truly for sale. That's where this whole idea of like a commoditized VIN and one price for a car, it's really not true, because if you're a reputable seller and you're serious about selling your cars and you stand behind them, your cars are worth more. And that's what we're trying to really showcase, and that's what we are showcasing with DealerClub.
Do you think you're in like a niche business? Can this scale to, like, I think the bigger question is, do we still live in like a high trust society? Obviously you have accountability on the platform with your score, but for new entrants, new players in the system, how does this scale? And how do you get dealers who may have otherwise not been fully transparent or 100% I don't know if any dealer is 100% transparent, but wouldn't have been maximally transparent. How do you kind of port that over to your company and ensure that everyone's playing by the rules and it's benefiting everyone?
Yeah, so it's a great question. There's going to be early adopters. There already are. We have dealers selling 100 plus cars a month on our platform right now. We have another dealer who's doing probably 50 a month, and they're selling them all no reserve. So they've got full trust in the platform. They've got full trust in that buyer base, and they're getting great results. And they've got a 4.9 out of 5 star rating. So new buyers feel comfortable, engaging on their auctions and paying, and sometimes paying too much for these cars. But at the end of the day, if you're eliminating the headache, and you're eliminating the brain damage of you buy the car and then it rolls off the transporter and then the transmission doesn't shift at all, and then you're opening an arbitration and it takes you 2 weeks to resolve it. Nobody wants to go through that. Even if at the end of that they're getting paid to fix the transmission, nobody feels good. Just tell them what they need to hear. And so really, like, what I believe, there's going to be early adopters, and there's going to be this like evolution of dealers that start to embrace this, and they also start to realize, and they do this already. Talk to a dealer, have a candid conversation about wholesale. They'll say things like, well, I send my nice cars to this auction, and all my other stuff, I send elsewhere, right? And that's a known. So they're smart. There's adverse selection. And we tell dealers, look, if you've got a car that, even if you described it fully and said the transmission slips and it overheats when it warms up and it's been in 4 accidents, you still don't feel like you can disclose that thing fully, don't list it on our platform. Your reputation is the most important. Because
I see what you're saying.
We're not begging for every car. Your reputation adds incremental value to every car you sell on a platform.
Understood. So you're basically saying you are for, correct me if I'm wrong here, if I have the right, a vehicle that I can, properly describe to its fullest, and I'm confident in its quality, you will maximize the value I get for that vehicle.
That's correct.
Conversely, if I send, a piece of your way that's not properly described or whatever it may be, that is not the place to put it, because I'm just going to hurt my reputation. It does not make sense.
Generally, yes. I mean, the truth is we sell damaged cars.
Wow.
We sell cars with salvage titles. But look, here's what it really comes down to. Yossi, you are a car guy. I am a car guy. There's a lot of other car guys and gals out there in the world. The other auction platforms have kind of went on this crusade to go and tell all of us that describing a car is really hard, and that you need a lot of technology and a lot of training and a lot of, electronics to be able to like walk around a car and describe a car. And I'm here to say that that's really not true. What you need is 2 trustworthy human beings that have a good reason to be trustworthy and upfront. And you don't need that much information disclosed. And here's why. If I trust you and you trust me, and this stuff happens all the time, there are cars that get bought and sold on text messages and phone calls and emails and spreadsheets with no pictures, virtually no data. But like, if we trust each other and I've got product that you're looking for, it just works, right? And then if the car shows up and it has a 3-inch scratch on it that I failed to tell you, you're not trying to arbitrate that thing from me. It's no big deal, right? So like, again, with the unintended consequences of how some of these things have played out, when you have a condition report with 85 pictures and you make all these promises, but the seller's not involved at all, and then the car shows up and it has a bad transmission, there's no shot that there's no credibility, there's no trust. You've got a problem on your hands. And what we're saying is, look, if you drive a car and you can describe that thing from one car person to another car person, we're not having those sort of breakdowns in these transactions. They're just working out. People are giving each other 5-star ratings and they're feeling good about it, even though it doesn't have this crazy in-depth condition report, because people know that they're trusting the person who's representing that car. Sorry, I know that was long-winded, but
no, it's helpful. I mean, I have two separate questions. I think first of all, more vehicles are being bought from public, right? Carvana, CarMax are acquiring just boatloads, record number of vehicles from the public.
Yes.
Do you think the car dealers can compete with that long term with the bigger players?
Yes. I think that they're not competing. I think what has happened is they look at these giant companies and they go, I'm just a little guy. There's no way for me to compete. The world's unfair. And really what we've got to do is we've got to look at Carvana and CarMax and go, they're teaching us something if we're wise enough to listen and to look at their business model. These guys wholesale so many cars, it's insane. CarMax has their own auctions, right? And now Carvana, they bought ADESA. They have their own auctions. So the paradigm shift here is instead of looking at them like they're the big enemy, look at them like they're the teacher, right? They'll buy any car. Now, why can they confidently buy any car? It's not because they're stupid and they just have public money behind them and they can go make endless mistakes. Everybody wants to say that. That's not true. They're very intelligent. They're really good operators, okay? But they have maximized on both ends. They've maximized on the acquisition of all these cars because they'll buy anything. You might not love the number, but they'll put a number on anything, right? And then they've maximized on the disposition. They literally own their own auctions. And they have an incredible reputation in those auctions. Dealers love buying cars at CarMax auctions. Why? Because for 100 years, exaggerating, but they have disclosed the cars fully. If you don't like it, we'll buy it back, right? And they got a 98% in-lane sell-through rate. So
you bid on it, you get it.
You bid on it, you get it, and you're getting what you thought you were gonna get, right? So, and now Carvana has taken a very similar approach to, they bought these ADESA auction the whole online or the whole physical auctions, and they're selling those cars and they're committed to sell them, and they've got loyal following of buyers because those cars are really for sale and they're generally disclosed for what they are. And so what they've done is they're buying more cars from the public, obviously. They've increased that aperture. And then on the disposition side, they're maximizing, right? If I'm Joe Blow used car dealer, and for me, representing that car at an auction, and I'm not a known entity, the car's 10 grand. But if CarMax or Carvana sells it, it's probably worth 11.5 or 12. That just means they can buy more cars from the public because they can incrementally pay more. That's all they've done.
Yep.
So what we're doing here with DealerClub is we're saying, here's the same playbook that these guys are doing, okay? You want your own auction? Here's your own auction. It's actually not that hard, but build an incredible reputation. People will pay you a premium for your wholesale cars. Wholesale is not a dirty word. Wholesale is how you grow a business. Dealers need to rethink this. They've honestly been taught the wrong thing. They've been taught go all in on wholesale and then just try and run a break even, somehow in wholesale. And I'm here to say, wholesale, I know dealers that take cars from one auction, bring them to DealerClub or any other auction and make a $2,000 spread in an afternoon. Because,
incredible.
Yeah, it's right there for the taking. So I love what CarMax and Carvana are doing because they're showing us the path, right?
This episode is brought to you by Dealer DMV. Dealers, are you still stuck using outdated interstate titling methods? Dealer 50 from Dealer DMV modernizes the process for you. With 24/7 access to sales tax, title, and registration fees, pre-filled state-specific forms, and seamless DMS integration, their online platform makes out-of-state titling fast, easy, and accurate. Plus, with full-service vendor support, their average time to perfect liens is under 14 days. And exclusively for CDG listeners, get 30 days of free full-service access to Dealer 50 on unlimited out-of-state deals. That's 30 days for free. It's a limited time offer that won't last long. Unlock free full-service deals for a month by visiting dlrdmv.com/CDG and use code POD30 when you submit an interest form. Again, that's dlrdmv.com/CDG and use code POD30 or click the link in the show notes below. What's your traction been like? Give us a little kind of timeline since you launched, and I think it was a couple months after you were on the podcast last time till now. You've grown a lot, but just tell us a little bit about traction.
Yeah, look, we're early innings, okay? But we really launched in October, and we ended up selling the company to Cars Commerce in January. So then we integrated into their company kind of February, March, and now we've kind of got our feet really underneath us, and we're growing. But we are absolutely growing. We've got a huge amount of demand of dealers that are signing up daily, weekly, and coming on the platform and engaging and buying and selling. So all signs are very, very positive.
Joe, are you surprised by any dealers signing up? Because hundreds, if not thousands of dealer groups across the country.
Yeah.
Are there any that are trying to sign up and you're like, I don't know about you?
No, what I'll say is maybe shift your question a little bit. There's an interesting dynamic that's playing out on DealerClub, which is in the conventional auctions, you've got everybody wants to buy the cars from the franchise dealerships. They want those trade-ins because there's this perception that it's a better quality car, it's not tampered with, it's not a story car that's gone through 6 independent.
It's a bigger operation, and this is
yeah. And what we're seeing, and this is early on, what we're seeing early on is, and this will shift, right, as the platform becomes more mainstream and grows, but we have independent dealers that are nimble, and they go, this is the platform for me, right? The independent dealers running quality business, and some of these guys are big. Some of these guys are wholesaling 100, 200 cars a month. They're independents. You wouldn't even know they exist. And they're selling cars, and they're selling them to franchise dealers. So we've got a little bit of like a paradigm shift here where the underdog guy, the independent dealer that was never seen as a reputable person, turns out he's totally reputable. He's got a 4.8 or a 4.9 star rating. You can trust him. And he's selling good product, and he's selling it to new car stores all over the country because they don't have the expertise necessarily to go and find these cars. They don't have the boots on the ground at the auction. And these independent dealers are vetting these cars out. They're saying, you can trust this, you can trust me, and they're buying from them. So it's a nice, I think, like broadening or expansion. And now the franchise dealers, and we all know this, they move a bit slower, right? There's more process in those stores that has to be kind of shifted or created. But they're starting to come online and embrace it too, also from the selling side. Just usually takes longer with them. It was the same way at ACV too.
I think that's a very good point because as a former independent, and I've had plenty of cars repped by others, right? Yeah. Where you have a good car and you say, hey, you put it under the right name, the right reputation,
sure,
it's gonna crush.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
And so that makes complete sense. You're getting credit for having the good reputation.
That's right. That's right. And I think there's another major differentiator that I want to throw out here too. Everything I'm saying right now is kind of like ephemeral, meaning like, yeah, in theory, Joe, that works. In theory, that should play out. Maybe when the platform really gets big and gets to scale, this idea of reputation adds value. I see it firsthand every day on the platform, but, your audience, new to this, not necessarily going to believe it at face value. What I can tell you that is material and concrete is because we don't have an inspection force out there, and because we're not out there owning all this arbitration risk that we really shouldn't be owning, and it's totally ridiculously expensive, especially when you're getting pounded on by both sides, buyers and sellers trying to take advantage of you. We have a business model where we pay the seller to sell the car. So there is no sell fee. We pay you when you sell a car. So the difference is about $500. We're generally paying a dealer $250 when they sell a car on the platform. There's no funny business here. If the car sells for $10,000 on the platform, the seller is receiving $10,250, right? And now, if you sold that car at any other platform, you're selling it for $10,000 and you're netting $97.50, whatever. If you don't have transport to go get it somewhere, or the fees are bigger, that's $500 per car. That's tangible. That's real. That's on every single car. And so the reason I'm harping on that is because what a lot of dealers will say, and I understand that they're saying this, is, I don't want to hire another person. I don't have anybody to do a CR in-house. You can't afford not to do this, quite honestly. Like, you have pawned off your wholesale operation. A third of the cars, if you're a typical new car dealership, a third of the inventory that flows through your books is wholesale. And you've just handed that off to some other entity to say, fingers crossed, I hope you get me what it's worth. That's not, you're a business operator. I'm a business guy. Like, what you focus on, there's where your opportunity is. So to go hand this inventory off and say, boy, I hope it works out. I hope you're doing everything in my best interest. I hope you're not calling these cars for engine noise when they actually don't have engine noise. That stuff's happening all the time, and nobody's looking at it. And it's right there. The car's in your possession. Look at it,
Yeah, Joe, is that like a temporary thing, though, right? Paying? Because the way I view supply is, for years, supply has been the big thing for auctions, right? I was, and I'm sure many dealers listening to this have been incentivized to bring supply to different auctions, whether it was with lower buy fees or some other perks. That hasn't been a secret that supply is king and everyone incentivizes you. Is this something that you can do in perpetuity because you have a better cost structure?
Yes.
Or is this like a temporary customer acquisition strategy?
It's fundamentally part of our business model. And that's why I call out the fact that, like, if you have a workforce of 1,000 inspectors out there that are getting paid whether or not the cars get sold,
your cost structure is bloated.
Exactly. And if you're owning arbitration risk that really shouldn't be owning, because sellers are taking advantage of it and buyers are taking advantage of it and hitting you with arbitrations that, those are things that these other platforms really can't get out from under. It's unfortunate. But it's a reality. So like that $250 that I'm going to pay you as a seller, Yossi, when you sell cars on the platform, I could either be paying, inspectors to go drive around, or I could be paying buyers, to stop them from whining, but instead of doing that, I'd rather just directly incentivize you long term. Like well into the future, it is baked into the business model.
Yeah. Well, I actually want to change my word there slightly. I don't know if I would say bloated cost structure. I think it's a lower margin cost structure that fits a different criteria of seller. Because like you said, not every seller will succeed if they don't have, a stellar reputation. So I think it's almost like, that when you buy the $15,000 used car, you're going to likely make less money on that car than you will on the $25,000, simply because the cheaper it is, the more you pay relative to value. It's you're still going to make money, but you simply may not make as much because there's more competition for that cheaper used car. So it might just be a different cost structure, which is slightly lower margin, but you're right. Different sellers, different platforms. Joe, I got to ask you, why'd you sell? That's what I've been thinking about this. And the context here, again, for our listeners is you've already exited as a founder, right? You've done super well, public company, incredible story, success story, Buffalo, New York. I thought about this before the podcast and I said, there had to have been something that you were looking for, an accelerant. I don't know the specifics, but what was the reason? Why did you decide to sell?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had no intentions of, but Alex Vetter and I got to talking, and you were part of that in the early, September, August. And I think, look, these businesses marketplaces need to have a lot of reach, and they need to hit a big audience very quickly. And for me, I was focused on the product, and that's where I wanted to put my time and attention, and that's what we did. I knew I needed a distribution channel, okay? And so it was...
To go big quickly.
Yeah, you have to, right? So there's just a super logical, natural fit with Cars Commerce is plugged into close to 20,000 dealerships around the country. Like, they've got a great name. They've got a great reputation. They're well-resourced. I like the team. Everybody that's there is on board with what we're trying to do here. This whole idea of actually helping dealers. And when you look at all their businesses, they really actually help dealers. And people will dispute this. It's only because they don't actually put the time in to understand it. There's a lot of predatory vendors out there. Cars is the furthest thing from it. So what we're trying to do is empower the dealer. What they're trying to do is empower the dealer. They've got the distribution. That's why this seemed like and is proving to be a really logical fit. The alternative would have been I'd keep running the thing, keep self-funding it for a while, and then eventually, get it venture backed and then go through 3 or 5 rounds of financing. And I've done that before and was very, very fortunate to get to a great outcome. But there's no guarantees with anything. And so to me, I'm really passionate about what we're doing. I really feel like the industry needs this. So my focus is on every day. It's how do I ensure that this thing is going to be a success? It's going to come to market. Because Yossi, my weirdness is that I derive so much pleasure from seeing dealers get good results. That's what I'm obsessed about. So when I see a dealer, and they're texting me, I know, but when they're texting me at, 9 o'clock at night saying, did you see the car I just sold on the platform? And I'm looking at it, they're like, I made $2,000 on it. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. That is.
Yeah, you're all in there. You're in the thick of it. You love it.
I know.
That's great. I was going to say, I was putting myself in your shoes. I'm sure I have to imagine that, financially probably didn't change much in your life. So it really, you get to focus on product, like you just said, and you get to, maximize the probability of success of the business and grow faster.
But I feel like it's a more, I have more confidence going this path than I did going at it alone. And I think that's something you learn.
That's cool.
You learn over time. I learned that at ACV too. I had great partners and amazing people that came into that company. There's no way I ever could have gotten that thing to where it ended up had it not been for all these other exceptional people that joined and helped on that journey.
This episode is brought to you by Q-Merit. Selling EVs can have a lot of friction points, but home charging installation shouldn't be one of them. That's why dealers and automakers trust Q-Merit, the go-to expert for home charging installations. Q-Merit helps EV buyers get set up with the latest charging solutions, making your EV sales easier and the customer experience seamless. So dealers, if you want to boost your sales on EVs, join Q-Merit's dealership partner program and start earning referral incentives on on every single installation. Stop losing sales to charging anxiety. Next time a customer asks about home charging, just say, I got a guy for that. Visit qmerit.com/car guy. That's QMERIT.com/car guy to learn more, or click the link in the show notes below.
Tell us a little bit about what like the state of the product today. What does it feel like if I'm actually buying and selling there, and what that's going to look like?
I would say it's modern, it's fresh, it's clean, it's easy to use. All the information that you need as a dealer is at your fingertips. The pictures are high quality. There's video with audio, obviously, embedded in there. I think one thing that is a real differentiator is, again, going back to you and me doing a transaction over the phone or text message because we know each other and trust each other from let's say a pretend past life of being car dealers. We've changed the condition report structure to where it's not NAAA. It's not these hard and fast rules. We've created subjectivity because used cars are subject. What's in front of you can be described a little differently by different people, and that's okay. And I think we embrace that. And I don't want to spook anybody here, but let's be honest. There's all these conversations about, I sent my car to this one auction, or I bought it at this auction with a 4.2. I shipped it to a different auction and it got a 3.1. It's the same car. So even when they say there's no subjectivity, there's obvious subjectivity. And we're just sitting here saying, let's change the narrative. Let's stop trying to say that we're all a bunch of robots CRing cars the exact same way. We're not. And so we've shifted it from being something where it's like red light or green light or yellow light with these kind of broad blankets that say, oh, this is a good car or this is a bad car. I just don't believe that. They're cars and they've got problems, and some are better than others. So we've broken it down to where we list the major attributes of the car: engine, transmission, drivetrain, air conditioning, electronics, stuff like that, okay? And we say, look, as a seller, guarantee what you want to guarantee. Don't guarantee what you don't want to guarantee. And let the buyers feel comfortable with that.
So you're distilling it down to specific components.
Yeah. Yep. Because you shouldn't, but you shouldn't throw the baby away with the bathwater.
That's a great freaking point.
I mean, just because a car goes over 100,000 or 150,000 or 175,000, whatever the auction rules are, and all these auctions have different rules, the car automatically becomes red light. Why? That doesn't make any sense. I've driven plenty of cars with 200,000 miles on them that were perfect.
Joe, and how cumbersome of a process is that? For me to go kind of component by component, what is that like?
10 minutes. It's
10
nothing.
minutes.
I mean, yeah, 15 minutes. Go as thorough as you want to go on a car. But this is what I was saying before. It's diminishing returns. At some point, if you've proven yourself as a reputable person, you can go take 25 pictures of a car and say, I ran it down the street. I put a dealer plate on it. I drove it to Dunkin' Donuts. I came back. It's a 180,000 mile Accord and it's worth $3,000. And we can do transactions. We're car people. We can do transactions on that. That actually is a scalable solution. That's not like a Mickey Mouse, this won't work long term. It absolutely will, and it is proving to.
I was in an Uber. It was like a long 2-hour Uber, and the guy was in a beautiful Kia Sorento, black, polished. It's got all the armor all inside and everything. And I look at the odometer. I saw 220. I was like, whoa! I said, I hope we make it in one piece.
Car probably never gets shut off. It probably runs perfectly.
Dude, this car, I'm telling you, man, he takes care of this freaking car.
Yep.
So it's definitely I can. So now tell me about. Let's say I don't guarantee a component. How does the market respond to that? Does the next buyer automatically assume that this is bad, or is there a middle ground? What's the actual kind of market clearing price for these things?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, it's subjective and it's all kind of case by case. But if you don't guarantee the transmission, here's what I will tell you. On our platform, if you're lazy, you don't then the buyers are going to be lazy. Meaning, if you just go, oh, it's a 150,000 mile car, I'm going to run it completely as is, I'm not going to guarantee anything. Chances are you're not going to get a great outcome, okay? Stand behind the thing a little bit, give us buyers some level of confidence, and we'll reward you by being engaged and paying fair money. That said, typically when you don't guarantee a component, you provide a little context, I'm not guaranteeing the transmission because it's delayed from park to drive. Okay, I know what I'm getting myself into. Now here's where this kind of where the rubber meets the road, if you will, is instead of arbitration, we have disputes. It's a different way of handling between buyer and seller any sort of, misunderstanding or issue that needs to be worked out. And it's all in the platform. And again, this probably sounds cumbersome to a lot of people. It's not. We get these things resolved in 3 days or less. People are reaching reasonable outcomes, or they're unwinding deals because they value their reputation. They go, yeah, you're right. I sold your car. It had a bad transmission. I'll just take the thing back. Focused on the bigger picture as opposed to this one incremental car and trying to take advantage of you and get all the money I can on this one deal, right? That's the headspace with these other auction platforms. We're trying to shift that and evolve that, and it's already working. But we get a very
to be fair, I would say it's also very seller dependent. I think it's fair to give credit to some other auctions that are doing the right thing. I don't think we should put in a blanket brush, and I know you're not.
No, I'm
but
not.
I think it's super seller dependent as well.
Yeah, and that's the other challenge here. Is if you are a reputable seller and you're just kind of in the washing machine getting tossed around with all these other unscrupulous sellers, that hurts you, that drags you down, right? Of course. So we're saying, look, elevate your own brand, create your own brand. You focus so hard in retail to create, to have good Google reviews from your customers, because that makes it easier. It greases the skids for the next customer to come in and buy a car from you. Do the exact same thing in wholesale. And the fascinating thing with wholesale is these are typically repeat customers. So if you get a buyer comfortable on wholesale, like this guy might buy 10 cars a month from you. Don't you want to take care of that guy?
Joe, what are you seeing in the market right now? Just like trends wise, tariffs, no tariffs. Like what's your take on what's happening?
Volatility. And I love it. I love it because not because I want to see anybody get hurt, but volatility creates opportunity. So instead of me sitting here and pretending that I'm in some ivory tower with all the insights, like the best advice I have to all car dealers is manage your turn time. Don't expose your inventory, whatever you're holding at this moment, whether it's 10 cars or 1,000 cars. If you can limit the exposure, you will fare these tumultuous waters better, because you won't have cars that you bought a quarter or 2 quarters ago that in today's market are irrelevant and incorrectly priced. Nobody can see inside the president's brain, and nobody can see inside how the markets will respond to his actions. I mean, if anything that we've seen, and I'm not big into politics, but what we're seeing is he says one thing, there's a huge response, he backs off from it, there's another response. I don't want to try and guess what's going to happen next. I think you make smart buys based on today, and you don't hold that car for any longer than you need to. And that kind of parlays into my whole obsession of how I would operate a dealership and how I used to operate a dealership. We were retail, and my inventory turn was in the low 20s. So I know dealers that can't get a car into their recon shop for 20 days. That's a problem. That's something you need to work on. You need to figure out how to increase your capacity there, your throughput, and move this inventory faster so you don't get caught with your pants around your ankles if the markets change. And they're going to. If anything, change is inevitable.
Unbelievable, yeah.
So I'm sorry I don't have better insights than that, but I'd be fooling you guys if I had some strong position.
This episode is brought to you by CDG Recruiting. The Car Dealership Guy platform has direct access to thousands of skilled professionals in the dealership and automotive industries. And so, building on top of our free industry job board, we've launched CDG Recruiting, a hands-on white glove automotive recruiting service. Whether you're looking to fill roles in dealership management, the C-suite, F&I, fixed ops, auto tech, or SaaS, we take the hassle out of hiring by doing the heavy lifting for you. It's easy. Start by submitting a confidential talent request on our website. Next, we connect you with a dedicated talent expert who will thoroughly understand your unique needs. And finally, we present you with top-notch candidates who are ready to drive your business forward. And here's the best part. We vet and screen every candidate for you so you don't have to. And with our placement guarantee, hiring through CDG Recruiting is 100% worry-free. Collectively, our team has decades of experience and has successfully placed over 1,000 roles in the automotive industry, so you know you're in good hands. If you're ready to find your next rockstar employee, try CDG Recruiting today by visiting cdgrecruiting.com or clicking the link in the show notes below. Again, that's cdgrecruiting.com.
Joe, what are you seeing from the best operators in terms of just throughput time and kind of running their process? I'm seeing a lot more dealers investing in reconditioning centers. Used car reconditioning centers, which was not, I spoke about this, I think, on a prior podcast maybe, but it wasn't as common as I hear about it today. Today, you just see a lot more of it. We ran a dealer survey, which we published on our newsletter. We surveyed our entire list of dealers, thousands of dealers. We had tons of responses come in, and they said the second focus point for dealers was used cars behind fixed ops, and it was neck and neck. So the point is, used, unsurprisingly, is very, very front and center. So anyways, back to my question, what are you seeing from best practices on throughput, and who's doing it the best? How are they doing it?
Yeah, I mean, some of these dealers are able to get stuff in as soon as it lands, or as soon as it gets traded, and get it into the shop and get it out and get it either sold retail or sold wholesale. Obviously that's best, but I'm thrilled to hear what you're saying about the recon centers. I've been banging this drum for a really long time that if you're a dealer and you sell used cars, like, you need a used car factory. And a retail repair shop at a Buick GMC store is not a used car reconditioning center. It's the antithesis of it. It looks like it because you walk in there and you go, oh, there's mechanics and there's car lifts. I have been advocating for literally off-site locations, different leadership, different pay structure. Because when you
100% different pay structure, it's not flat rate. It's more of an hourly base with performance goals and bonuses, in my opinion.
Totally. And again, look at, instead of complaining about CarMax and Carvana, look at what they do. They run extremely efficient used car reconditioning facilities. And so if they can do it, well, everybody else can too. Point. You just have to get out of your own head. This idea of the dealer principal is benefiting because, the shop's making the money and the parts department's making the money. It's like, yeah, and then the amount of times, Yossi, that I hear about cars that it was a great trade-in, but it needed tires and brakes, and so they put it in the shop and they got an estimate for $4,000.
Yeah,
the dealer wholesale. This is no exaggeration. The used car manager goes, well, I can't make any money at that rate, so then they wholesale it. There's a wholesaler that buys that car, puts tires, puts brakes on it, brings it back to the same dealer and sells it to them because now it's a new piece of inventory that they can put right on their front line.
That's a broken model. I mean, you're letting the tail wag the dog at that point. You 100%. Should be, either have, split up the bays or something. But you said the compensation structure should be different. You got to go from bespoke, highly skilled technicians to more of a production technician, right? In and out, in and out, in and out. And you do it a lot more cost efficiently, and it benefits your other departments because you can then retail that car. So It still happens a lot all the time. I hear about it. It's not, the reality is it is still happening, but I totally understand your point and I agree that it's very inefficient.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I'm glad to hear you're seeing more of it. I just toured a big Ford dealership and they have a massive off-site recon facility. And I just got so excited. I was like, this is awesome. And what do you know? They run a massive used car operation, but it's because they've got this separate facility that runs differently. Nope.
Is it because he was just on the podcast, and he was talking about his operation. Very, very strong.
It's good. It's good to see. It's Sarasota Ford, and
nice.
But they rock and roll, man, and it was so nice to see. Like, it's so refreshing. So I've got my ideas, but I never ran a big Ford store. So it's nice to see that the stuff that I've been kind of advocating for, it actually does work out there in the wild, and it's working really well for them.
I love it. Well, dude, we're gonna have to keep catching up here because you're doing some great work. I'm just curious, what's on your mind nowadays? What's exciting to you?
I get so excited when I can help. It's generally these dealerships are small businesses. I mean, they're not all, but independents, 1 to 3 franchise dealer locations, they're not huge operators. And if we can go and show them how to maximize in a whole new channel, something they've basically been neglecting or being told forever that there's really nothing you can do here besides just try and run it at a break even. That really excites me because it's right there in their hands. And right now it's kind of sand slipping through the cracks. We have a platform that dramatically changes the profitability of their wholesale operation, of a third of the cars they're touching. And now what we're seeing too is some of these dealers that have really embraced this, and it's early, this thing's only been live for 6 months, they're now actively trying to build their wholesale department. They're like, amazing. Whoa, this really works. This really is an unlock. We should be sourcing more cars intentionally to go and put through DealerClub. And there again, go back, look at what CarMax, look at what Carvana are doing. That's exactly what they're doing. So again, I don't see those guys ever taking all the cars off the table. I just see them as really great teachers of what we all should be more focused on.
It's awesome. I'm sure we have lots of dealers in the audience who listen or who use AccuTrade or like other solutions within Cars Commerce. Any plans on any integrations there?
Definitely. Yeah, so that stuff's coming. We're excited about that.
I can only imagine it's going to make lives easier, save time. So
yeah, and every AccuTrade dealer that I talk to is truly plugged in on used cars and wholesale and understanding that. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of dealers and a lot of used car managers have just shifted away from having a focus on it or visibility into what's going on in the auctions. Beautiful thing about AccuTrade is it's very accurate data, but like used car managers, in my mind, need to be steeped in wholesale. They need to be looking at these transactions. What you typically get, or all too often get, is used car managers that they really just like, it's their ecosystem. So, if they got burned on a BMW or they got, they bought a Hyundai and it had a bad engine or a Kia or something like that, then they're just opposed to buying or taking in on trade a BMW or a Hyundai or a Kia. And that's just, you can't paint with that broader brush. You have to feel good about every car. You have to be able to call the thing for what it is, and you have to be able to be confident putting a value on every car. And that's where AccuTrade really helps. And then AccuTrade, kind of coupled with DealerClub, allows you to have a strategy to get out of any of these cars. Call them for what they are. Don't let some other auction just go and brand it as a red light car or say it's bad. No, it could be a really good car and have one or two problems. Most of them are, truthfully. So we're allowing for those kind of genuine conversations to take place, because that's actually where the money is. That's where the opportunity lies.
Amazing. Joe, this is great stuff. So I'm going to pumped to see how you're going to continue building this thing. So you got a long road ahead of you, but you're doing some great work.
We do. Appreciate that.
If anyone is interested, of course, visiting DealerClub, we'll put the link in the show notes below as well. Excellent. So we'll link to the website and everything. Dude, you got some good branding, by the way. So you did a good job on that from the marketing side. I like it.
Thank you.
So it's very nice and clean. Joe Neiman, thanks for coming back on the pod. Always a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me, Yossi.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.